Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but most of you know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about how we're planning to parent consciously with non-mainstream techniques, emotional intelligence, and communication even before she can speak.
And I'm really excited to share some of these non-mainstream techniques. We have been having a lot of fun learning about things that you don't see everywhere, and even some that people were like, oh, no way, and kind of even doubting, which we're like excited to try and even show like, no, it can really work. And it's been a fun journey for us in preparing for parenting. And, we get a front row seat in our work with couples because we've shared about 85% plus of the couples that we work with are parents. And even though we don't give them like parenting coaching, right? We would support their partnership, their communication, etc. We get to hear the challenges that couples face when their focus is on the nursery and, finding the hospital to birth at. And there isn't as much preparation for who they want to be as parents. What do you want to embody? What do you want to model for your kids? And that's been a big focus for us. Now, do we think we're going to be perfect at this right out of the gate? No, that's not our goal. And actually, parenting consciously is not about perfection at all. It's really about us just being intentional and learning as we go.
And obviously, we wanted to share our journey. This is going to be a personal conversation between us that we hope you listening are going to enjoy. Obviously, with the last episode being with Amy McCready, we're really inspired to share the things that we've been learning and going through. And one more disclaimer, we know that in the realm of personal development and personal growth, the big difference is about experience versus knowledge. And so we do know that we're not in the experience yet. So the ideas and the concepts we have for many of you might sound like, oh, that's a good idea. Wait until you get into it. Well, yes, there's going to be some changes, but we do feel that we're preparing the groundwork and we're preparing our intention, and the things that we are going to actually commit to is what's going to make a big difference in us realizing it. And our real growth is going to become in the experience of it. So obviously we know that, and recording this podcast, we're not yet in the experience, but we still wanted to share with you as a fun podcast here the things that we're thinking about, that we're planning, and that we're actually quite excited about.
And in terms of learning from an expert and someone who has not only been a parent, but has taught thousands of parents, if you haven't seen or heard yet, we're actually hosting a webinar for Amy McCready, one of the world's leading parenting experts, who she can tell you, here are the techniques that worked, here are the things to change and the how-tos. And so we're actually hosting that webinar next week in November. And so you don't want to miss this. You want to go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com/parenting. And she is the one that can help you with the, temper tantrums and the what do you do when you're triggered by your kids.
And not yelling. How to actually listen,
how to have them listen without that power struggle. She can give you those how-tos. So make sure you register for that, because it is an exclusive training for our community. That's you guys, and you really don't want to miss learning from her.
So let's start to dive in here. And by the way, we're sharing what we've been learning from experts. These are not what Aaron and Jocelyn are just going to try on their own. Everything we're going to share here, though non-mainstream, has specifically influenced thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and some of these points, millions of people. I should say parents, millions of parents, and just not necessarily mainstream.
Well, first off, should we even just tell them a little bit about our birth preparation?
That's the first step to go.
So
here we go.
Before we even get into like parenting, we're preparing for natural birth, and we are going to birth at a birthing center, which if you aren't familiar, there's hospital, right? Which everyone knows what a hospital is. There's home births, but there's actually a step in between the two, which is at a birthing center where it's just a separate facility, but it's kind of set up like a home. There's a water bath, there is a bed, but it's not about machinery. You're not getting epidurals there, but it's always close to a hospital if needed. and there's midwives, and it's all about, really doing this naturally. And I'm grateful. I know that not everyone has this blessing, but I'm grateful that I've had a non-complicated pregnancy. So I'm able to do this. And we are using a program called Hypnobabies, which has been amazing. And it's a very systematic training for learning about hypnosis, which, by the way, isn't like what you see in those...
Like a magician's shows, right? Yeah.
Where I'm going to be unconscious and Aaron can basically just be like, raise your right hand. And I raise my right hand.
From the time I snap my fingers, you're going to be a football player.
It's not that. It's about really retraining your brain and your body to perceive sensations differently. We are shown this very kind of painful portrayal of birth and the screaming and the grunting and it hurts and it hurts. And it's really about retraining. Like, what if those were just pressures? And what if those were just sensations? And I have had different things happen in my life, kind of side note, but I actually broke my back a decade ago. And one of the things I committed to, because I didn't want to be on the morphine drip and all those things, was how can I handle this quote unquote pain differently? So I've had firsthand experience changing the way I perceive sensations, and I'm really excited to take that into the birth process. And it's been fun. Any observations in you witnessing me kind of prepare?
Well, I guess in transparency, if you will, you're doing most of the work. So twice a day, you listen to an affirmation, then you do your hypnosis practice, and that starts minimum of 6 weeks, and you do this every day till birth so that you really build up that mastery. And I just wanted to say why we're going to share everything here is because everything has an aspect that we so resonate in our overall philosophy on what it takes to be a great human being. So again, though I'm not the one doing this, this links to the principle that pain is of the body, but suffering is of the mind.
Yes.
And that's why I'm all in for this. And I'm glad that you were open to this. And this would be a different conversation, but essentially it is true. Like the sensations of the body, there's pain. Pain is actually good. Pain actually gives us the signal that we should sort of stop doing something so that we continue to survive, right? Like if there was no pain, someone might just jump out in front of a bus, for the fun of it, right? It might get to that place eventually. But suffering is a mindset. Suffering is what you tell yourself about the pain. And most of the time as human beings, we associate them together. When I feel pain, I make myself suffer because this shouldn't be happening. Many people think about the ramifications of what this means for the future, things they might not be able to do. So literally you start suffering, which is really like a projection of a future, something you're going to miss out on. And that's why I'm just inspired that you're taking this on, because you're really owning that principle of, yes, there's going to be some sensations in the body. And I like how it's pressure waves, but it's about there being ease and flow and helping
and trusting the body.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's super powerful. So just from a philosophy perspective, this is totally aligned for me on that.
And some other things that we're doing, I say we, just because I like to feel like a partnership
I'm sort
thing.
of a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you encourage me, you even remind me or go, hey, have you done your exercises today? Which is really nice because it makes me feel like even though you're not doing it, you're thinking about it. And so I'm also doing pelvic floor preparation.
Smart.
And a program through One Strong Mama. They're fantastic. And it's a daily program, really getting your pelvic floor ready because, I realized in just reading different resources that a lot of women maybe don't even know that there's real techniques and things you can do to prepare your body for more ease. Like just being pregnant isn't necessarily the preparation for it. There are things you can do to really get your body to open up easier, to make sure your pelvis is really ready to open and not resist. And so I'm doing that pelvic floor work, which has been amazing. Gosh, I mean, it's been an amazing journey. And
I think excited. Spine health, I think with the pelvis, there's so many things you can do because I've been watching you do it that have you prepare for this.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. So we'll have that happening here in a few weeks and then be able to share what the real-time journey is like.
Oh, lastly, I also love the natural birth at a birthing center because of the philosophy of being able to walk around, move around, trust your body, do air squats, which actually is a key thing to help the progression of the baby. Mm-hmm. And it's just such contrast to the hospital. And I guess, sorry for any of the nurses and doctors that listen, but the fact is, just from a physiological perspective, a gravity perspective, how does laying flat on a bed with your legs up in the air, how does that make sense? That does not help you give birth.
Right.
I mean, gravity, the most fundamental thing to physical human existence, and you're basically going against it.
Right.
You're not setting yourself up for the easiest process. Mm-hmm. So that whole idea to me is huge. Being able to stand up, walk around, be on all fours, be in a tub, it makes so much more sense than the typical medical philosophy. I think the last thing you could probably even say, giving birth is a natural thing, not a medical event.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's huge to me.
That's a quote from one of the books I was reading about natural birth. And I do want to honor that there are some women who do have, medical conditions, and that is what's appropriate, is to have, medical
necessary.
support. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are, for a great number of women, no complications. And it is a completely natural event that for a very long time, women have been squatting in the jungle and, just like digging a hole in their hut and giving birth. And so I am grateful that my body has handled pregnancy well and that it is prepared for a natural birth. And I think it's really, of course, you have to do what's right for you. But if it's possible, I think that preparing for natural birth is amazing.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Well, we really flushed that one out, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting. The next point we want to talk about is developing our child's emotional intelligence. And I want to start off, and this is going to be a longer process, as she grows into the years. But the first point here for me is that the emotional intelligence is much more innate for a child. So when I think about this overall principle, just because I have been alive for a little bit longer than her. Now, honestly, if you think about that as a human being, the thousands, tens of thousands, potentially millions of years that humans have been around, my personal life is a small speck in that. So relative, I don't know that much more in a sense than she's going to. And even more so, even though I feel like I've done a good job of my own conscious development, I have some more experiences and ideas. But when I think about ushering in a new being, there's no conditioning there. There's no belief system. And the idea that the spiritual identity, the emotional intelligence, being in its purest form, I would rather be a guide to letting that flourish than to project or have my child adopt what I think is true or what I believe, versus the idea that spiritually she's going to be way more developed and way more free than I am.
Yeah.
So, and way more intuitive. And I want to be someone that guides that process, not limits it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in what we've been reading, like I'm especially loving the book, The Danish Way of Parenting. And
I've also reference that,
but
good point.
Have read some other books that even have studied like indigenous cultures and, things that we don't hear about a lot in America. And it's interesting because, especially in the United States, a lot of the focus can be on, do they follow rules, right? Do they listen to you? Are they obedient? Like that's a lot of the focus. And in these other cultures, what I find really interesting is how much the focus is on emotional intelligence, is how can I raise an empathetic, kind, loving human being who's in touch with their emotions? And this is something I'm so glad in our preparation for this, even before she's here, we've been working with each other on how can we be even more.
Oh man, it's a growth.
Yeah. Not only emotionally intelligent for ourselves, like, taking responsibility for our own emotions, but then also how we're being around each other's emotions and not trying to fix it, not trying to change each other, but okay, you're sad right now. Got it. Okay. You're mad right now. Let's let you be there and unpack that. So we're practicing it now even more before she's here. And it's something we really want to keep present, of course, when she is.
Yeah, since you mentioned it, two of the biggest principles from the Danish way of parenting is empathy and then reframing. So these are two of the biggest things that we're focusing on. You know, of course, with empathy, it's about allowing whatever emotion she's going to have. And then it's really about having her be empathetic towards the emotions of the other kids that she is going to interact with. And not having any of the emotions be made wrong or get over it. The squashing.
Stop being sad. Stop being, come on, get over it. Or yes.
Yeah, just because as adults in the America during this time frame that we're so out of touch with our emotions and we're so uncomfortable with it, we squash it in ourselves, we squash it in our partners, and we just try to move on to a solution. That's not the best philosophy. Now, honestly, if you think about this, with all that America has, are we the happiest people on the planet? Not even close.
No.
And we've never been close. So you got to really think, at least I really think about this with the tech and the freedom. It's all been great. But Denmark had a stretch of at least 40 years in a row of being number one on the list. I don't even think other countries were even that close. The number one most happiest country in the world. Now, that made us really think, like, let's look at what they're doing, because isn't that the goal? Don't we primarily talk about being a happy couple, being a happy individual, leading to being a happy couple, to being the best couple you can be? If that's the case, America doesn't really have it right. We're actually, over the years, been around 18. We've actually been lower than Mexico. So in what we're talking about, emotional intelligence and happiness, I wouldn't necessarily follow what America has been doing. We should look elsewhere. And the idea of empathy, which we just talked about, but also reframing. Reframing is such a great idea that you don't invalidate the emotion that a kid is having. What you do through some conversation is help them, I would say, broaden their perspective, or at least give them a different perspective on what might be happening. And I think these two are so intertwined. So, for example, in the book, The Danish Way of Parenting, it talks about maybe another kid takes a toy from our daughter, for instance, and then gets upset. And then comes back and is like, oh, well, Johnny is mean. Oh, yeah, totally hear you. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling sad.
Oh, yeah, totally get you're sad. Now, was Johnny mean last week?
No.
Oh, so Johnny's not mean, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
So anyway, we're practicing, right? But what you start to move from is some of the ideas that they have that seem very fixed, like Johnny's mean. Oh, is he mean? He wasn't mean last week, right? So he must not be mean all the time. So yes, you're feeling sad. What do you think you could have done differently?
I could have shared it with him.
Yeah, so you're even jumping ahead, but they might come up with other ideas like, oh, I could have told the teacher, could have done this, that. Then you can empower them to say, well, maybe Johnny just wasn't having a great day, or maybe he wanted to play with you. What about being able to, share and play together? That might have been more fun. What do you think of that?
I can try that.
So what you do is you reframe the perspective for them, because it's the single perspective they have that's giving them that emotion. You validate the emotion, but then you can move on to helping them see a different perspective. Now, to be honest, is this not a great way to interact with your partner?
Both.
Honestly, like these parenting philosophies are so linked to what we agree with and align with, just as partners communicating.
Oh, yeah.
Empathy and reframing are like my two biggest things that I want to focus on in my life and in our marriage.
Yeah. It's huge. And, in the title of this, we use the term parent consciously. And the reason that emotional intelligence is just described in so many of these different books and resources that are around conscious parenting is because conscious parenting is about realizing that you are raising a being. And for us, we believe it's somewhat a soul who is here for a distinct purpose. And we aren't here to, conform her to who we want her to be. And also that it's about rule following and that we are her parent, so she needs to listen to us. That's personally just not the parenting style that we resonate with. Of course, there's going to be boundaries. Of course, there's going to be ways in which we keep her safe and have her understand what is acceptable and not. But emotional intelligence is realizing that sometimes it's not about a rule. Sometimes it's about their emotion and them understanding. And I just think back to school and growing up. And did I ever have a teacher or even observing the parents of my friends? They didn't ever pause and go, oh, let's explore what you're feeling and why and where that comes from, and slowing down and really processing that. And so emotional intelligence is so linked to that conscious parenting. And that's how you and I, like you said, live our marriage. We pause. We aren't just going to move on with the night or move on with the day and step over emotions. We're going to go, hey, what's coming up for you? Let's talk through this. Emotions are a huge part of life, and we all, I think, can get better at embracing and exploring them.
Yeah, for sure. And everything in this emotional intelligence little segment here is so applicable to relationship. The other thing about this is being able to show love from being, not doing. And this is for us, like, to be love. Now we talk about in other episodes, there's being, right? Who you're being is a combination of your thought process, your emotions that are going on. You could say your attitude and your mood, right? And kids can feel your being way more than you're doing. They can even feel an incongruency of the way you are being in a certain moment and the things that you're doing. And they pay, I believe, more attention to your actions, not just what you say, but even more so how you're being. So that's kind of one point. The second point is this idea of acknowledging and having kids seek for your approval through achievement, that they get your love through the things that they do. Primarily, if they do the things that you want and that you told them to, we typically give them more love and then we praise them. Oh, it's so great you've been doing what I've been saying you should do. Rather than just loving them for being that they are a being. I know that might sound confusing, but you're just loving them for who they're being because they're here, and that's it. And funny enough, for those of you that may have seen this movie Dune, this is a brand new movie that came out this week. We just went and saw it. And in one of the scenes, the son is saying to his dad, I don't think I want to take over the leadership of our family. And the dad says a few things, but ultimately at the end he says, you know what? And even if you didn't want to, I would love you. And do you know why? Because you're my son. And that's it. That's the only thing his dad was saying that you have to be. Actually, you don't have to do anything because you're already being.
I love that.
And that is one of the things that we're going to have as our foundational commitments and things that we're going to try to do. We won't do it all the time.
It's not going to be about, it's not about perfection. It's about reminding. I mean, parenting is a lesson ongoingly. And that's, I think, what our approach is going to be is, okay, what are we learning this week? What is this showing us about us that we can do better? Not her.
It's going to be a huge journey for us.
Us. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Shefali. Her book, The Conscious Parent, game changer. You just got to read it. Absolutely love her work, and huge influence on us.
And that's where that principle comes from, as well as this last one in this category, developing her connection with herself. When I was reading about this, I'm like, oh man, that's so true. Because those of you listening, how connected do you think you are to your true self, your inner being, your intuition? Not very connected. Most of us aren't.
Well, just trying to get through the days a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, it's so focused on activity. And why is that? Because our parents and everyone else focused on what?
Doing.
Activities.
Getting things done.
Let's get as many toys in front of this child. Let's fill their day and their time and their mind and their energy with as many possible activities, from soccer to dance to music. Now, we're going to allow her to explore things. But when you again, these are ideas, right? But we totally see the potential of this. When you overstimulate a child, I guess I shouldn't say it like to those listening, our focus and our belief is we're not going to overstimulate her with toys and activities.
And
to
lots of
fill
to-dos and
her entire time, because if we allow her to be, she will get more connected to her own self. She will start to get connection to who she is and what she desires. I can't think of a better thing to allow as a guide, as a parent, is to have a child be connected to their own intuition, what they want. How many couples that we talk to, like, what do you really want? I mean, how many business owners, how many individuals in general, like almost a high 90% of people, what do you really want out of your life? Most people don't know. And I think this is a function of not having time early on to connect to the self, to get clear on, here's who I am, and I'm clear on what I want to do and what I want to be. Now, that evolves, obviously. Like, what you want to do and who you want to be at 5 years old is going to be different at 35. But to build that connection to herself, once again, can't think of anything much more beneficial that I could help with.
Well, and since you mentioned overstimulation, it's not even just about kids. How many adults are overstimulated? They have their phone next to them while their TV's on and the iPad going, right? And then they're like, I don't know why I'm stressed. I don't know why I can't sleep. I don't know. Well, because you're overstimulated and you fill your Saturdays and you fill your Sundays and you aren't getting this downtime. You wake up and right away you either turn on the news or you get to your emails. We're overstimulated as human beings, at least, the people we see in America.
Oh, for sure.
And so for us, just as a reminder, because I think we said this a while back on an episode, we plan on when we're with her, our phones are away from us. Like they aren't going to be around us. She's not going to see us be distracted. And now, of course, do we have a modern life? Yes, we have a business and we have an online business. And so we are, of course, going to have different times where we need to step away and take care of things on technology. But our goal is to show her a healthy relationship to technology and to slowing down. And
more so to life itself.
Yes.
Life is not a phone or a computer. Life is life out there. Life is your internal life. Life is nature. It's the sky. It's other people. It's the life happening out there in the world.
Yes.
And would much rather have her start her life, being more connected to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so those are some of the things we're doing related to emotional intelligence, parenting consciously. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been learning around. I mean, there's so many communication techniques, and we're obsessed with communication in marriage. So, of course, we're going to be obsessed with communication in parenting. One thing, because we know it's going to be a little bit until she is speaking and we're having conversations with her, but we've been excited about learning how to communicate with her even before she has language.
Oh, what does that mean?
Well, one thing I'm excited about, just to say, is I'm excited about baby sign language. I took a sign language class years ago and I wish I'd kept up with it because I think it's so beautiful that we can communicate in different ways. And so I'm really excited to try different hand motions because babies can communicate with you. Both they can understand and do the motion back before their mouth can create words. So we're going to use hand motions for, hungry, thirsty, potty, more, thank you. And I think that that's going to be really fun to be able to empower her with ways to tell us what she needs before her body is ready to use words.
Are you ready for this next one?
I'm ready. Go in.
We're going to go even more non-mainstream here. So those of you that are listening probably have heard some about baby sign language, so you might not have been too shocked. Like, I've heard of that. Get ready for this. So actually, a lady named Priscilla Dunstan was on Oprah a while back, and she really found that babies, young infant babies in the first 3 months, actually communicate through sound. But if you don't pay attention or know what to listen for, and then because you don't know, you're not responding to the sounds, babies will stop using it. So it's key, it's critical that in the first 3 months you pay attention. So there's 5 sounds. I can't make them, and we won't go into detail here.
But the video really is distinct when you watch it.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And I'll tell you how I put it into practice once already. So essentially there are 5 sounds, And babies communicate through very slight differences in their, what do you call them, cries? Or just kind of sounds. One is for hungry. One is for tired. One is for being uncomfortable, which could be their temperature, their position, or maybe even a diaper. The other one is that they have lower gas, and the other one is burp. So those are the 5 main things. And they have different sounds, but slightly different. So if you pay attention, your baby, all right, I'm just going to say ours again, so not to put this out on everyone. We're going to be listening to these sounds specifically because many parents that I've talked to, their baby cries, they actually have no idea why.
No, they're just kind of trying.
No idea.
First we do the diaper, then we feed, then we try this. And that's what the woman said in the video is instead of struggling with attempting this sequence of things, if you really learn to listen, you can hear this difference. And she's so good at it.
Amazing, because she had like 9 women in a room. And the women were also talking about like how they weren't sleeping, how it's been so difficult. They basically have a formula like, oh, the baby cries, they try this, they try this, they try this, and it just doesn't work basically. But they don't know what else to do. And so when she was really listening and she said, oh, that baby just needs burped. And they burped and then they stopped crying.
Right.
It's like, what the, whoa. She's like, oh, that one is tired. And since you're not going to go to sleep right now, just, give it a pacifier. And it stopped. I'm like, what?
Yes.
So I'm like, can this really work? So I was out with some friends of ours and I'm trying to listen for the sound because it's subtle. And so a friend of mine had his young baby and I was listening and I thought, that sounds like the sound for burp. And I was with another friend. I was telling her about the sounds. I said, I think that baby just needs burp. And I didn't tell my other friend whose baby it was, but he, picked the baby up and just happened to burp him. And he stopped. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was right.
Yes.
This might actually work. And the fact that babies, number one, can communicate and that we could listen and respond to it at that age, I'm like so excited because I love communication. But just to be able to respond in this way without language, that we could be so in tune with our daughter here, to me is magical.
And we're going to put that link in the show notes because I'm sure many of you listening who are still in the baby phase or a friend who's about to, you're like, I want to send them that video because it's only like 5 minutes too. And shout out to who sent it to us. We're coaching a couple from Ireland. Yes, they do have the best accent ever. And they sent it to us. So thank you to them for sending us the video because we're so excited to know it and try it and be able to understand. She is trying to tell us. She is making a certain sound and be able to understand. Speaking of communication, if that didn't blow your mind that a baby can make different sounds that means different things, listen to this one. So there is something called elimination communication, which
hang on to your hat.
It's related to actually pottying and going to the bathroom. And so it never even really dawned on me until we started to explore this, how much we are wasting with diapers. I mean, not only money, but the landfills. And yes, now there are biodegradable diapers, which is fantastic. But even so, I mean, just millions and millions of diapers. Is it the number one?
It might even be in the billions because it is, hang on to your hats, diapers are the third biggest waste on the planet.
The earth. It is like diapers are going to take over the world.
The earth.
So we were fascinated, and Aaron, I know this was to your credit because funny moment.
I'm like, we're going to do this.
Aaron hasn't been around a lot of babies growing up, and so he thought that newborns went to the bathroom like maybe once or twice a day like adults. I
honestly just didn't know.
Right. So he was shocked when a friend was like, no, man, it's like 10 to 14 times a day when they're newborns. And he's like, depression no for a couple hours. So you had said, well, what if I actually can learn kind of the timing of when she goes and just kind of put her near the potty? Couldn't I do that? And our friends, they weren't trying to be rude by any means, but they were just like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, right. Wait till you have one.
Then, literally the next day,
no joke,
one of our besties, Mackenzie, texts us listened to this podcast, and it was from the Melissa Ambrosini show, and happened to have this trainer, Andrea, that's her name, I believe is Andrea, teaching about this principle called elimination communication. So do you want to give this brief synopsis of what this is?
Yeah. However you pottied your children, just let it go. The way you did it was fine. And so for those of you that are going to be having them, look, for number one, for diapers being the third largest waste on the planet, this got to have you look at this differently. The other thing about this is, you as an adult, do you want to walk around with poop in your pants and pee on you?
No.
No.
You don't even want to go, not even walk around with it. You don't want to go on yourself.
Why do you think a baby would want to? It doesn't want to sit in its own filth.
Yeah.
And if you think about this, it's ridiculous. It's so confusing. Why do we teach babies to poop on themselves?
Then potty
and
train
then,
them.
as soon as we can, like a year to 3 years, try to have them reverse it. It's like, choose one. You know, like let me poop on myself for my entire life, or let's start out the way the adults and normal human beings are going to do this.
Well, I know one of the arguments that parents have, because it's kind of a controversial topic out there, is you shouldn't potty train a baby. That's not in their comprehension level. It's too much stress, because I know potty training can be, challenging for kids to learn, and it can be a little bit stressful depending on their age and circumstances. So this isn't about potty training them in terms of forcing them to be above their developmental stage.
Yeah, that's right. Potty training becomes a result of elimination communication.
Right. So the brief synopsis.
That's the piece you got to get here. So if we've already been talking about that babies communicate to you with those 5 sounds, then one of the main things is that lower gas, right? So there's actually a sound that they make when they need to go. So without going into super detail, because you can listen to Andrea Olson talk about this. She has a book called Going Diaper Free. So again, going diaper free is the outcome here. Now, by following this process, you can actually have naturally your child be fully potty trained by 1, not 3 years old, like a lot of people are. And in essence, you're dramatically reducing the amount of times that they're actually going. So you might have a diaper on, but they're not actually going in it. So let me hit on a couple of points here. Number 1, there are generic timings that babies go to the bathroom. And this is literally what I was thinking. A baby's got to be very routine based in different stages. So before I knew about this, I said, why don't I just write down the times and see if there's a correlation? Maybe my engineering logical side. And it turns out that there is. Like, they're going to go to the bathroom when they wake up, after feeding, and typically after a transition. So if they've been in a car seat or a stroller a while, they're going to want to go, because they typically don't want to go on themselves while they're in a stroller or car seat. So you just start to notice these times, and when you can, there's a particular hold that you hold them in depending on their age, but you can hold them over a little mini potty, a bucket, a sink, a bathtub, ideally a toilet for me. I'm going to try for that, and even like a little toilet for themselves. So when they need to go in these generic times, just hold them over that. What you then start to do is make sound to help them associate going to the bathroom with that sound. It's not too dissimilar than when you're training a dog.
But it's not, we're not saying training,
But it's a type of conditioning.
Yes.
And so what they will start to do is actually communicate to you through those sounds.
Well, if babies also, at certain stages learn, if I do this, X happens, right? Or I can count on my parents doing this, right? They start to learn patterns. And so if they start to learn, oh, when I make this signal, my parents are going to give me a chance to go over a basin, which I prefer instead of doing in my diaper. Right. They will start to learn, okay, they're going to know, and I can count on my parents to do this. So their brain, it is about patterns, and it is about, I can count on this happening, which I prefer over going to the bathroom on myself.
Yeah. Now, does this take a lot of intent? I mean, yes, it does. And time. So that's one of the big misnomers here. But how much time do you spend wiping diapers or just changing diapers, or when there's like a blowout, changing clothes. So the time factor ends up being about the same, but would you rather be cleaning up how nasty that is, or would you rather it just be super easy, and by a couple of months actually your child can be not going in their diaper very often, and look, the lady that did this runs 2 businesses, has 5 kids, and did this with all of them.
Yes.
So if you think one of your things in your mind is, I don't have the time, no, I don't accept that. And this is coming from her, right? Don't accept that. You can do this. And my commitment is that we are going to do this.
Yes.
Just from many perspectives. The amount of waste, I think how uncomfortable it is. And look, I'm not trying to do that many diapers, like, to be honest.
And what's cool about the process that she teaches is it's not, again, about perfection. It's not about us expecting ourselves from day one to never have her go in her diaper. It's about can we eliminate even some of the misses? Yeah. And can we have her more easily transition. So again, these principles, we're not expecting to be like, oh guys, we got this perfect. She never goes in her diaper. Yeah. It's about, can we eliminate at least a good majority of the diapers and have her not go through that stressful transition of, oh, now I'm going into a potty when I've been going in a diaper for so long, which is stressful on kids to learn.
To us, it's all about communication that bonds and connects, right? Mm-hmm. So I think initially, the communication is just confusing, right? Like that to me is one of the biggest things. And then also this creates a bond. And we really start to communicate with her early on. It builds trust. I mean, all of this there's no downside. There's literally no downside to this. So we're going to go for it, and we'll share with you how it goes.
We'll tell you
guys. But I'm committed that it's going to be a really great journey, however it goes. But we will, I promise, have less diapers than the average people. Mm-hmm. And she'll be potty trained way before the average. Yeah. So I promise.
We're going to share the journey and tell you how it goes and share the moments where it's not perfect too, for sure. Let's switch from communication, which we covered a good amount there, including potty communication, but also communicating before she has words. So let's switch even to kind of our focus on developing her as a human being with experiences, and not just focusing on education, which, again, the U.S. is so focused on education and grades and being smart and getting ready for college and getting ready for achievement. Do you want to start to dive into what we're going to focus on around experience?
Well, 2 of the things is going to be following more of a Montessori style. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you talk more about that one because you've been doing a little more research. But for me, I have to share that things that I listen to are a lot based in the traditional, like, Indian culture.
Like Sadhguru, we love. He's amazing.
Yeah, this definitely comes from him. In those traditions, and this is going to be a deeper topic, so I'm not going to go deep, but it's about developing the identity rather than the intellect. Now, just quick background, identity can be from very small to very big. Now, most humans identify as something like just this body, like who I am is just this body. Now, in these traditional cultures, they want to develop the largest identity as possible. And most of you probably haven't really heard of this kind of concept, but if we could help our daughter see herself as, equal with other people, her identity is inclusive. Yeah. To include others, races, cultures, people.
Belief systems.
Yeah, belief systems. And just seeing herself not only as a human being, like all other human beings, and having that empathy, but seeing herself as very connected, you've expanded the identity. Now, when you add intellect to an expanded identity, now you have huge potential. On the flip side, if you just add intellect to a limited identity, what do they use the intellect for? To survive. Mm-hmm. And when they feel like their survival is being contested, they use the intellect to create distance, they create separation, and, what do we see today? Violence. You're able to justify your own actions against somebody for your own survival because your identity is so limited. Now, let me just give you the last overall example here. Do I have to tell you, the listener, right now, to not cut your own arm off?
No.
Well, why is that?
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Because you see the arm as
Part
you.
of you. Mm-hmm.
So that means you do not do violence to yourself. So think about what I said here. If you expand your identity to actually include other people, where other people are included in yourself, I don't ever have to talk about morality. I don't ever have to tell you not to be violent or not to be hurtful to anyone else because, well, in essence, you don't see others as separate from you. So you don't even have to talk about morality because you're going to naturally do what is best for all because you see everyone and life as a part of yourself. Now, very aspirational here, but that's the idea. In these traditional cultures, they focus in the first 12 years on having a new being expand their identity. Where unfortunately in the US, we create such small, limited identities and call that self-reliance, but we create this container of everything around me is
separate,
is even potentially dangerous. So you start to protect yourself with all the intellect you have. So to me, the opposite is really the focus, right? It's going to be basically a philosophy. I don't know how it's going to play out, but that's our idea around quote unquote education. We don't want to just provide education to a limited identity. We want to provide education after her identity is expanded to as big as it can be.
Yeah, like it not being just about, okay, good, now she's ready for school and she's, getting great grades. And again, it's like about this achievement knowledge perspective. Now, do we want her to really function well in the world, which requires certain facts and understanding and logic? Of course. Mm-hmm. But not more important than how she sees herself, how she sees other people, and her experiencing life. And so even we have this idea of creating like a bucket of activities that we can do. So one thing I struggled with in school was learning about concepts like intellectually, but not having hands-on like experience with it.
Right.
So we want to take her to places to understand it, not just talk about farming. I want to go to a farm and have her understand what harvesting is, right? I don't want her to just understand about certain animals. I want to go interact with them. And I think that would be a more fun learning experience, but also, again, have her just be exposed. We want her to be exposed to many different environments, people, opinions, perspectives, something. We don't want her to only know, oh, well, here's what we believe politically, or here's what we believe in terms of faith or religion. No, we want her to learn about the broader perspective of people and life, and have her really be able to connect with and be around people who aren't even exactly like her or believe the same things. That's something I'm excited about in terms of this experience over education, is not have her create this rigid, no, this is what I believe. And if you don't believe that same thing, then we don't hang out.
Yeah. When a being can see life for what it really is, the vast, infinite potential of not only experience, but diversity, ever changing, ever expanding, I mean, that's a being that is a great version, right? I mean, I think both of us could say that we're out to just help guide her to be way better than us. Mm-hmm. And there are things that we'll be able to share, but I think all of these things that we are sharing with our ideas of how we want to help guide her is that she can be a much better human being. If we want this world to end up being different or better, it's going to require a different type of human being, more so than what I am. I don't even know what that being is going to be like. So experience is what teaches. Intellect and knowledge does not teach. That's just more of a memory, framework. More of intellect. And all of you know a lot of different areas where you can tell when, in this realm of influencers and marketers and selling things and just the whole
personal development space.
Yeah, or I was thinking more like capitalism, but essentially, how many people out there can you tell are talking about something without actually knowing it.
Or being it, like truly
And that
embodying
comes from,
it.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm getting excited, so sorry if I was cutting you off, but it comes from experience. It's so much different. Like you said, when I've experienced something, what I've learned and what I know and who I am is widely different than what I read about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that creates a different type of human being.
I want to just circle back to something you mentioned, Montessori.
Oh, yeah.
Really love that whole. I follow a ton of Montessori Instagram accounts. We'll probably have her experience some form of Montessori education, but even from a young age, of course, age appropriate, like giving her opportunities to be kind of not reliant on us. Like even there's simple things like creating a water station so that she doesn't always have to be like, Mom or Dad, can I have a cup of water? It's low enough for her to get. Or, hey, 3 or 4 outfits are out. Which one do you want to wear? And so really giving her the ability to choose, to empower herself, to be able to, I guess, the word is just be empowered. And so I really love the Montessori approach. If you haven't like researched or learned much more about that, I highly encourage you kind of reading like the Montessori approach. Education, it's much more about experiences over sitting down at a desk and like learning and being tested. So I just love that.
Actually, just on that note, as we close out here, I think where we want to get to when she becomes, let's say, 5 or 6 and starts to go into the school age is going to be much more around this idea to develop the innate gifts that are there. I was just watching a video with Elon Musk where they asked, so where do you send your kids to school essentially? Or how do you school your kids? And he's like, well, actually, I started my own school.
Of course, Elon Musk would.
Yeah. So apparently there are 12 kids. I think maybe by the end of this year, there was going to be 20. There are no grades, not as in like A, B, C, D, but there's no grade levels. There's no first, second, third, fourth. And it seeks to have kids pursue what they naturally are drawn to, gifted at. But also the idea is that by being in a group of other kids that may be different in age or might be further along in, let's say, math, what you start to get is, oh, well, that kid is great at math. Well, it might not be as great, let's say, in
social studies,
playing or
writing.
social. Well, so I don't know about. Is anyone good at social studies? Like, what else could there be? Like music or something else. So you also get a sense that humans are very diverse. Like they're good at some things and not good at other things. So I think having a child realize that there's a gift in everyone, and also not everyone is good at everything, I think creates such a great atmosphere. Plus, it makes way more sense to play to the innate gifts of a child and help them pursue those. You know, there was actually a statement, or you could say an argument made a long time ago. Imagine if Albert Einstein's parents forced him to get good at
art,
social studies, at art, maybe playing the piano. What else is there?
I mean, those are plenty of examples.
Yeah, something. And they were like, no, you already got a few A's in math. Don't focus on that. Are you kidding me? You would have got rid of a genius, one of the most influential people ever. That really strikes me.
Yeah. So it's really like, what are her gifts? What is she drawn to? How can we give her the opportunities to strengthen those and really step into that even more, as opposed to, no, you have to conform to being great and learning about all these other things that you may never use in your life.
Yeah, I was going to probably say it much differently. I was going to say all this other stuff that's useless.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that. I don't want to discount education. It's not useless. Every small aspect will be useful to another person.
Yeah.
One individual does not need to use all this information. Focus on a couple of them and develop those. And then of the millions of other people, everyone will have their own little aspect and they can get good at that little aspect. We don't need people to be good at everything. This is a stupid concept.
Well, that's a very strong opinion. And look, what we're saying here is not that we are anti kind of the the systems that are set up in terms.
I don't know. I kind of am.
Well, it's not that we're judging that or saying that's not applicable sometimes.
Right, I'm with you.
It's more so that we really want to be even more intentional with our choices, because again, and this is the way we view marriage and partnership, is that it is about learning. Life and marriage is an opportunity to learn, and our goal is to become the best human beings we can be. It's not about success and money and our retirement plan and, you know, all those kind of things that are easy to focus on from a superficial level. It is, are we transforming? Are we growing? Are we healing? Are we moving beyond our patterns that don't work? So that's how we approach our partnership and marriage. So when it comes to parenting, it's about learning and her, like, how can we set her up to be who she's meant to be and the best version of herself. And so that's why we're going to question every decision. We're not going to do things just because that's what you do. No. What you do is you put them in kindergarten, then they go to school, then, you know, and get ready for college. That's a system that's set up, and people do it a lot of times automatically. We want to question every decision. Just like, well, do we really need to do all these diapers? I don't know. Let's check it out. Mm-hmm. Well, do we have to approach education this way? I don't know. Let's explore it a little bit more. And that's what we just want to invite you into, if you're interested, is to just question things a little bit. Is this the best way? Are there alternate ways? Is this how we want to raise our conscious being who is a soul and really has a purpose here? Or do we want to switch things up a little bit?
I just got a hit.
Go ahead.
Change is the real constant, and we're always evolving. Do we make buildings and homes the same way we did back in the 20s and 30s?
No, it's evolved.
Do we make cars or planes the same? No. They're much better. They're safer, they're faster, they're more convenient. So we understand that things have to be done differently for things to get better. If you want to produce the same human being as everyone else, exactly the same way, put them in the same system. But if, like everything else, technology, jobs, living, it's all moving to a place of evolving. We can't resist that. So to produce a new and better human being, you're not going to do it through the same way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the same way is wrong. I just don't think it suits this constant evolution and transformation, which is always happening. So we just don't want to resist it. We want to go with it and being open-minded that we don't know what this is going to take.
Yeah.
And that's going to be exciting. It's going to be maybe scary at some times because, I mean, the main thing here again is if we want to help usher in a new human being, it's going to take doing something different than what's always been done. And I like how you said, we're not judging these things. What we have to look at, we can't keep doing the same thing the same way. You're producing the same type of people. And at least now, are we producing the best kind of people? We're certainly not the happiest. So I would think we should really start to look at some of these things.
Yeah, let's try things differently. So we hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the philosophies and beliefs and things we want to try. And we are not saying we're going to be perfect at this, you guys. We're going to share our journey just like we share about our marriage. It's not perfect. We have breakdowns. We have conflicts. We're going to share that same journey along the way in our parenting. And really want to invite you to the parenting web class that Amy McCready will be leading for us. Make sure you go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com/parenting. We really resonate with her positive parenting approach and how to handle those moments when you're triggered. We're going to have human moments when we are parents, and we want to be equipped with ways to handle that better. So make sure you attend that web class. We love you all. We're so excited to share our journey, and make sure you continue to listen through the end of the year. Even during our time off, once baby Freeman comes, we've got some surprises in store for you guys. We're going to be recording some episodes that'll play during our time off, and we've got some extra little gifts and goodies that you're going to want to hear about. So make sure you listen through the end of the year. We love you guys, and we will talk to you on the next episode.